Good morning, everyone. My name is Kat Hoenke, and I'm the GIS coordinator for the Southeast Aquatic Resources Partnership. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about our Southeast Aquatic Barrier Prioritization tool and how we will be expanding this tool into the Western United States. But before I get started, just a brief background on Sarp. Sarp is one of the fish habitat partnerships under the National Fish Habitat Partnership. And we are also a joint committee under the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, so we are under both of those umbrellas. We have a very similar setup to the Western Native Trout Initiative. And we have a steering committee which consists of representatives of each of our member states, as well as other federal, corporate, and NGO partners. And we also have a Southeast Aquatic Habitat Plan that we use to meet our mission to protect, conserve, and restore aquatic resources across political boundaries. And this plan has within it several objectives, one of which is objective number 3, to improve or maintain watershed connectivity. And as many of you probably know, many man-made dams and barriers are very detrimental to aquatic systems. And so we've been working for the past 10 years to develop a connectivity program across our region to build capacity and really build a community of practice to remove dams and replace culverts and other road-related barriers across our region. And we do this through 3 main components in our program. The first is a GIS-based inventory of barriers. And this is really the foundation of our program because we can't prioritize barriers unless we know where they are. And then we have a prioritization framework, which helps us to identify the best barriers to remove based on ecological benefits. And then finally, in the Southeast, we are operating in connectivity teams. And these are teams at the state level, which are composed of multiple different sectors that all work together to build capacity for education and outreach and to streamline permitting, but also to take the results of our prioritization process and implement those projects on the ground. And so about 2 years ago, we received funding from the Fish and Wildlife Service Fish Passage Program Region 4, as well as other funding sources like some state wildlife grant funds and Forest Service and others to build this user-friendly tool online with the help of the Conservation Biology Institute and Astute Spruce. And this tool really helps to visualize our program within a user-friendly framework, and you can go through and look at and learn about each of the components of our program, as well as both summarize our inventory and look at our inventory and prioritize these barriers. And now we have recently received additional funds from the Fish Passage Program of the Fish and Wildlife Service Legacy Regions 2 and 6 to expand this tool out into an additional 10 states. And you can see these 10 states here in this map. And so now I'm going to go through and explain more about our different components of the program. The inventory itself consists of 3 main data sets: dams, road crossings, and waterfalls. And I'm going to explain the dams and the road crossings this time. Our inventory of dams really is a regional database, but it has local relevance and it leads to implementation. And this is because we've worked to supplement the national inventory of dams with local information for over 10 years. The national inventory of dams for this region has about 50,000 dams. However, we have gathered information from dam safety data sets, from local partners on the ground, from dissertation projects, as well as using different GIS methodologies to model dams using hydrography data. And so now we've gone from 50,000 dams to over 147,000 dams. One aspect of our inventory that is unique is this concept of potential social feasibility. And in this case, the potential social feasibility really helps us to get an idea of which projects might be potentially socially feasible on the ground. We wouldn't want to spend time contacting an owner for a dam that's being used. And so we've worked to do this potential social feasibility reconnaissance for over 12,000 dams, working with partners as well as students and interns to look at these dams on aerial maps and get an idea of whether or not they have docks or other surrounding land uses that might indicate they're socially infeasible. And this comes into play when we look at our tool, and I'll explain that in a moment. The next data set we have in our inventory is road crossings. And we have over 2 million road crossings where a road crosses a stream in our region, courtesy of data from the US Geological Survey. However, not all of these road crossings are going to be barriers to aquatic organisms. And so in order to determine which ones are barriers, a biologist or resource manager has to go out to the site and take measurements to determine whether or not it's a barrier. And so we've worked to collect information from our partners on where these sites have been visited to make this determination. And we found that there's over 26,000 of these road crossings that have been assessed for aquatic organism passage using multiple different methodologies or protocols. However, over the past 2 years, we've been working with partners to adopt a protocol created by the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative, which is a protocol designed to be scientifically robust, but also take less time in the field. And so we've taken this protocol and we've trained 200 people in the Southeast to use it, and they have collected over 5,000 additional data points on aquatic organism passage barriers. All of this information is taken using Survey 123 for ArcGIS in the field and is automatically uploaded into our inventory, which lives on ArcGIS Online. And so all of these data sets on ArcGIS Online are then used for our tool. They're periodically exported off, and then connectivity analyses are completed to then be uploaded into our tool. And so for the Western states, we are now in the data collection phase. And one of the reasons why we wanted to present at this wonderful conference was to identify new potential partners who might have information on fish passage barriers in these new states. Right now, there's over 37,000 dams in the national inventory of dams for our new states here. However, we've been working over the past several months to contact fish biologists and hydrologists and Trout Unlimited and other partners of Forest Service to identify barriers that are not in the national inventory of dams, as well as culverts and road crossings and diversions. And this is what you're looking at here. And just a quick snapshot of how this is really coming together. For example, the state of Utah, in the national inventory, there are 800 dams. However, the state of Utah has an inventory of 5,000 dams that can be also added to that. And the state of Utah has many fish passage barriers inventoried as a part of their Department of Natural Resources that we can then use that incorporates an additional 300 or more barriers to the inventory. So we're hoping to get all these data that we can for these states. And all this information is then summarized in our tool. And so you can see here, this is what our tool looks like, and it will just look the same, but it's expanded out for the rest of the states. And you can look at the states as well as hydrologic units or HUCs or counties and drill down and see what is the density of structures, how many barriers have been assessed, how many road crossings have been assessed, what is the average number of connected miles. And so that's a summarize function in our tool. The next function is the prioritize function. And to discuss that, I'll tell you a little bit what goes on in the back end. Our prioritization really has the main goal of leading to implementation, supporting management decisions, and helping our partners go from an opportunistic approach to a strategic approach to barrier removal. And so for us, we have 3 simple criteria that help us to identify a priority barrier. The barrier would open large amounts of habitat. The removal of the barrier would open access to high quality habitat. And then finally, the social conditions appear favorable. And that gets into that reconnaissance coding I mentioned earlier. And so we have 4 indicators that help us to identify or meet those criteria. Those are the number of miles opened or network length. And then we look at that network, the upstream miles from that structure to the next dam or structure. And we look at that network and look at the sinuosity of that network, the percent natural land cover in the floodplain of that network, and then finally the complexity of that network. Number of miles, the number of stream miles, the number of stream size classes gained. And these indicators can be combined into 3 different scenarios. We have network connectivity, which is just the number of miles opened. Network condition, which is the other 3 indicators excluding connectivity. And then finally, a combination of the 2 scenarios. And so very quickly, I'll just share with you a little bit about how it looks to prioritize a dam in the tool, prioritize dams. So you go up here to the top right and click prioritize. And the next window you're taken to allows you to decide whether or not you want to prioritize dams or road-related barriers. And so for this case, I chose dams, and now you come to a window that lets you pick a geographic area. You can pick a state, a county, multiple counties, multiple HUCs. I'm going to choose the state of Florida in this case. I'm not going to go through every step here for the sake of time, but this is what happens if you were to prioritize every dam in Florida, 2,600 dams that map to a stream. And what you come up with is the top dam to remove is the Jim Woodruff Dam. And this dam obviously isn't going anywhere just by looking at it. It's definitely got multiple uses and is very, very large. And this just shows how important it is to incorporate that potential social feasibility that I showed earlier. And so for the state of Florida, we were awarded some state wildlife grant funding to perform the feasibility reconnaissance and build up the inventory in Florida. And so now within our filters panel, you can select the dams in Florida that are either possibly feasible or likely feasible based on our feasibility reconnaissance efforts. And in this case, there are 487 dams that are available to prioritize if you're looking at that filter. We also have other filters, such as number of miles opened, the number of threatened and endangered species or species of greatest conservation need in a HUC 12, and even land ownership. And one thing that's very important in the West is the concept of beneficial barriers, or barriers that block invasive species from moving upstream. And so any dam that has been identified as a beneficial barrier is included in that feasibility and conservation benefit filter and actually not available for prioritization. So we code it within that feasibility indicator. And so now that we've prioritized the 487 dams in Florida, you can then look and toggle to see the results. You can pull the slider and you'll be able to see the top tiers. This is the top 5, 10, 15% of the result. And you can toggle between the different scenarios. But this little dam came up as a high priority for us over and over again in Florida. And it turns out that this dam is a small dam that was not on any inventory prior to us cataloging it. It actually came from a dissertation. And it opens up 33 miles to the main stem Apalachicola River, and it's on a Nature Conservancy easement. And so it turns out that we approached the owner, and the owner is wanting to remove the dam. And so we've gone ahead and done some design and engineering on this site, and it's now fully funded, and we're working on permitting. So hopefully this will be removed next year. And we also have another wonderful example of the tool. This is a dam on the Washita National Forest in Arkansas, and the Forest Service Region 8 provided some funding with American Rivers to identify and inventory dams on Forest Service lands, especially undocumented and small dams. And so this dam kept coming up as a high priority because it opens up several miles to a wild and scenic river right here that runs perpendicular to this tributary. And it turned out that this dam was not serving any purpose. And we worked with the Arkansas Aquatic Connectivity Team and the forest biologist Mitzi Cole in order to remove this dam last year. And so this is a really nice example of how this tool and inventory led to an actual dam removal. And we've also got several culverts that have been removed and are slated for removal from this effort, where our partners have gone out into the field using our protocol, surveyed structures, and then those structures were then prioritized in our tool, and now they're going to be removed, the top priority culverts. And so those are some highlighted wins and successes from our program. And these, again, are our expanded boundaries. And so really what we are hoping for is to work with partners in these states where we may be missing barrier data. We're in the data collection phase now. So if any of you know of any additional barrier data sets that we might be able to incorporate into our work, please email me or call me. My email is here, kat@southeastaquatics.net, and very happy to answer any questions, and thank you all for your attention.